Hello, my name is Olurotimiosha, and I like talking about American history and I guess history and culture generally. Today, I just wanted to um, point out some people that are modern Iranians, people we don't know are Iranians. I thought it was interesting that the Game of Thrones theme song was actually composed by an Iranian. He's German-Iranian actually. His name is Ramin Djawadi. If you can hear the music in the background and recognize the Game of Thrones theme song, I loved the Game of Thrones, and I remember watching it. I watched it. All the Game of Thrones I've ever seen was like I watched it was like a 10-day marathon. After I finished my exams in law school, my first semester exams in law school, I just went and I sort of had a marathon screening of all the Game of Thrones up until that point, and I loved the theme song. I loved the way it starts. Of course, Game of Thrones was written by George R. R. Martin, and it's interesting because he didn't publish it until after his 50s. He published Game of Thrones, um, which is like one of the. It's part of his. Is this Song of Ice and Fire or something? A Song of Ice and Fire. Um, I've read Clash of Titans. Yeah, Clash of Titans. That's by George R. R. Martin, and he's a very good writer. He's a very good author. You know, but in this era, a great theme song adds to the cinematic narrative, right? And of course, the cinematic narrative is driven by the original story, right? And the original story was written by George R. R. Martin. Just like we normally attribute James Bond, right? The I love James Bond as well, the sequels and all that, the series. James Bond is, you know, written by Ian Fleming, and we normally praise Ian Fleming a lot. Most of us haven't read an Ian Fleming book. We watch the movies, and of course, we can't separate the great James Bond movies from the theme song. You know, the theme song drives the James Bond narrative as well. The theme song, the composer, for people who don't know, the theme song for James Bond was composed by. The score was arranged by John Barry, but the theme song was originally written by a guy called Monty Norman. The composer was Monty Norman, but John Barry is normally the one who's credited for James Bond's theme song. So I thought I should do this, and I wanted to just point out that well, the composer for the Game of Thrones is an Iranian, is someone of Iranian descent, is German-Iranian, and that's Ramin Djawadi. Now, other modern Iranians we might know, I wanted to point out is Christine Amanpour, because my mom loved watching Christine Amanpour. I remember when I was growing up in Nigeria, she was a CNN broadcaster then, and my mom loved watching Christine Amanpour. She's a British Iranian. Um, and who else? People normally tend to associate the Kardashians with an Iranian heritage. Well, Kardashians, their father is was Armenian descent. Now, Armenians are cousins of Iranians. Armenians are cousins of Iranians because, for the most part, Armenians have been, subjects of various Persian empires, right? So they've been part of various Persian empires. Again, the Persian empires, they go. That Persian is another word for Iranian. They go back, um, you know, over 6,000 years actually, right? They started with there was the Medes, right? The Median Empire, and then but very famous amongst the empire builders, the Achaemenid Empire, under Cyrus, right? Cyrus the Great. Because Cyrus the Great, I've done a video discussing Cyrus the Great. He's notably in the Bible. Cyrus the Great is in the Bible as the Persian king who actually freed the Hebrews, the Jewish people, under Babylonian captivity and repatriated them back to their homelands and helped them rebuild their temples, right? Cyrus the Great also established the first human rights charter, what's considered the first human rights charter. When you do international human rights law, you will come across the Cyrus cylinder, right? And it's typically attributed as the first human rights charter. Now, also remember the first monotheism, right? The first monotheism comes from the Persians, right? Zoroastrianism. So they're the first who actually had a creator god, right? A religion with one creator god, just one god, creator god, the Ahura Mazda, right? So that's Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism ended up influencing the Abrahamic religions, that's the Jewish religions, as from Judaism, which of course Christian and Islam are derivatives of. In any event, so I just wanted to have us listen to this great piece of music composed by the Iranian German Ramin Djawadi. My name is Oluruti Miosha, and I'll keep you posted. Thank you.